Hi, good afternoon to everybody.
Almost there. I'm just checking it. It's a few seconds of lag. Yeah. Oh, wonderful, guys. I'm again super excited to resume these our educational series, call them workshops, from Human-Centered AI Masters, AI Masters that we are developing together with universities and SMEs and also research labs. And in today's series, I have my colleague. He's from Citel, as I pronounce it. I hope I'm doing the right pronunciation, Alessandro.
Yes,
Um,
Citel.
um, Thank you. His name is Alessandro Barducci. He is an R&D manager, and they obviously are in Naples, a wonderful company, obviously much older than ours. So very quickly introducing Alessandro to you. Alessandro, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I started entering the world of IT and computers in the 80s, and I started immediately with some expert system in Prolog and also a tentative NLP, quite basic, in the medical area, coronary research. Then I changed different business areas. I mostly worked in the aerospace with air traffic control software, satellite software, but also in insurance, automotive. But I always had this interest for AI and this kind of things. And in fact, finally, I'm back again. Also, from 20 years from now, I started writing some articles in some newspapers and magazines about internet, but also about the impact, social and economic and cultural impact of the digital transformation of the cyborg and of the artificial intelligence. And now in Citel, I have found a very nice place. We have a lot of activities. Some of them are quite common in the IT industry, but we also have a strong presence in the part of artificial intelligence, like chatbots, and also with artificial personal job finding, artificial intelligence for the human resources. And we make some very good results because my main goal is make artificial intelligence that works in the real world. Sometimes in the academic we have excellent results, but that are quite lost in the real world. And we try and we sometimes achieve to have a very good results in the real world.
Great. I was hearing one of our viewers, they were mentioning that your voice is breaking. I hope you have a good internet connection, Alessandro, and I hope it's cable. All right. So just taking a bit of a reintroducing for those who know or probably are not fully up to date with what is Human-Centered AI Masters. It is a European-funded AI Masters that is intended to teach master's students not only about the machine learning and the deep learning, the exciting parts which the world and all you folks know so well, but it is also something that we want to teach the master students the art of understanding it from the eyes of someone who wants to interrogate and interpret and explain from ethical perspective. So our goal is to kind of develop this master's program in which that is a combination of these two elements. And there's a group of really smart people, great universities from Naples, from Hungary, from Ireland, from the Netherlands. And what we are trying to do is we've already started this wonderful master's program. For instance, our colleagues in the BME University in Budapest, in Budapest, they've already started this project, which is wonderful to see. And in this talk, Alessandro is going to give you a lovely presentation around the perspective how they see about machines and humans and what kind of a future is this going to be. So I think it's going to be a few minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, guys. Feel free to ask questions. You can keep asking questions as we go along. And I will make sure that your questions are read and are answered by us during this 30, max 45 minutes of a chat. So Alessandro, without much ado, I'm going to bring your presentation online. And the floor is yours. Go ahead, and we are looking very excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. And here we have first a quite ancient citation to remember us that the idea of some kind of mechanical man or mechanical being is very old. This quote is from 3,000 old, so 3,000 years old, more or less. But anyway, now the things are going real, not only in the imagination of poets or writers, and we are facing a growing interconnection between machine and human bodies. I know I always call this century, also even before it began, the century of cyborg and also of genetic engineering. But now we are interested in cyborg, and we have a transformation, a growing integration between many machines that has a political, social, economical, and ethical implication. Of course, we will not have a complete course here, and not even in the HCAIM Master, because it's more focused on the human-centered artificial intelligence. But I think that it's very important to have some basic understanding of the cyborg issues to better cope with all the problems that arises with artificial intelligence, because cyborg is one of the main implications of this. So we had a growing interaction in the last decades from between machines, particularly computers, but not only, and human bodies. We can figure out the kind of the level of this integration, thinking about digital amputation. So just imagine you were in the 80s and you lose all and ever your data in the digital data. Well, possibly you may have lost some thesis, some graduation thesis, some article, but it was not a big damage with your personal computer in your desktop. Then you can imagine in the 90s, in the 2000s, now if you lose all your, irrecoverably lose all your digital accounts like Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, and you lose all your personal mail, all your personal image, all the things that you have on your mobile phones, on your computers, I think some people will be near to suicide. And anyways, like losing an arm or a leg. Possibly some people would prefer to lose a hand than to lose all their digital identity. So with this, I mean that we have a digital extension of our body. This digital extension is an essential part, a very important part of our body, exactly like an arm or a leg. And this extension is growing each day more. We are each day more. We have a digital personality. I use the term digital nawal. The nawal is nawal is your double in the Nahuatl mythology, the Aztec, let's say, mythology. You have a double that normally is an animal, If this double is ill, you are ill. If this double is happy, you are happy. And more or less, you can imagine the same with your avatar, no? The avatar is taken from the Indian tradition. So let's go on. But this is to have just a quick recall. Before the 80s, computers were refrigerator-like devices that you only found in big companies, you only find in research lab. Most of the people, even in the so-called industrialized countries, haven't seen a computer all over their life. Okay. Then in the 80s, the first revolution, the personal computer, that arrives in your working desktop, and sometimes for the lucky ones at your home, but was not for everyone. Then personal computers become more cheap every day, and we have also laptops. Now a computer is not only fixed in your desktop, you can bring it with you. Well, it's heavy, it's not so easy, but you can bring it with you at work, home, work. You can travel with the computer. Starting from the 90s, we also start to have mobile phones. Initially, it's just to have calls and short messages. Then gradually we have everything. We have every kind of communication, connection, GPS positioning, internet connection, photos, videos, music, whatever. And so now most of the people, including me, often feel lost, completely lost, if they go out only just 30 minutes without their phone. No, they feel disconnected, insecure, like a bit like naked, no? And you bring every day with you your mobile phone every day, every time. So it's a part of your body. Of course, we also have smartwatches, but essentially this is now the age of smartphones. And computers are returning to be more for professionals. Most people in a mobile phone can do whatever they did before in a personal computer. And in fact, a modern smartphone has much more computing power than a personal computer of 20 years ago, for example. By the end of the 90s, there is also a very important novelty. I mean, the first working connection between the brain, the human brain, and a computer. We had Jerry, a 62-year-old United States man that became blind decades before for an accident. And they made an interface in this visual cortex made for...
it was very popular research. I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, 62 connection, like sort of Boogia connection, and connected with a personal computer with 2 cameras, an ultrasound device detector. And with this, he managed to have a vision of sort of, I think, 24,400 pixels. And after some training, because neurons, brain neurons, initially were quite astonished from this kind of very different stimuli that they received. But finally, it worked, and he was able to walk in the street and to read some big signal, for example, in the underground. So it was a huge improvement for him. But it was also a direct connection between a computer and a human brain. So this is just, I think it marks the beginning of the real era of the cyborg. No? Another essential element of this transformation is that during all these decades, we had an explosion of internet starting from the 90s. And now everyone and everything is connected, possibly in the very near future. Also, our food, whatever, will be connected to internet. But anyway, it's already considered the internet connection an essential good, like potable water, drinkable water, electricity, gas, telephone. You cannot live without a connection. Okay, yes, you can actually live. There are hundreds of millions, possibly thousands of millions of people that not even have electricity in the world. Don't forget it, because this is part of the issue. I mean, if we had some difference before, I don't have electricity, I have electricity. Now I don't have electricity, I don't have internet, I have electricity and internet, the difference grow higher. Anyway, many modern devices or software are nearly or totally useless without connection. We have netbooks, we have software on the cloud, and without an internet connection, will be impossible to work. You are just a sort of smart terminal with your computer that have plenty of computing power, but not enough to do everything. So we use it as a device to explore, to browse. And I can also say that this will become stronger in the near future with quantum computing, because with quantum computing, very likely that we have some sort of mainframe initially in some isolated building, very well shielded and protected from interference, because it's very difficult to have a quantum computer working. And we will use our computer just like a dumb terminal, just in the old era of mainframes. Anyway, all the resume of this, that you are constantly more integrated with some electronic device that are becoming a part of our identity and our body, of course. And we can interact in a global network that complements or gradually replace our traditional working and personal interactions, because we use this kind of network for everything, for information, to work, to talk with friends, to look for partners, whatever. And we don't have just computers or mobile phones that are outside our body. We also can have robotic processes that are improving constantly. You don't have just now a rigid arm, you can have a robotic arm that moves much better than the traditional prostheses. And we can also have nanomachines. They are still in experimental phase, but the idea of having nanomachines inside your blood that cleans you from, for example, cancer cells, or clean from cholesterol incrustation on your coronaries. That's great. And you can even imagine to have some kind of digital memories, smartphones and computer directly connected with your brains. Oh, that's great. And of course, quantum computing will have also a deep impact in artificial intelligence. When quantum computing transformation will be completed, 10, 20 years, no more, we will be able to achieve incredible results also in the artificial intelligence, and possibly we could be the third generation to witness a computer passing the Turing test. I hope you know what it's about, but anyway, we will talk about it in the HCAIM Master anyway. And so not only we will be able to have better bodies, and we could choose our body in a certain way, but also smarter brains. This seems all wonderful, but there are also some questions and concerns, and especially young students that will become young professionals, young brilliant professionals in this area. It's very important that you have the cultural tools to understand and face this kind of question. For example, just a part of the question we can deal with in the course, socio-economical question. Who will have the opportunity to have a better body? Eyes, electronic ears, privacy and security, the access, not the legal access to data and information. You can imagine George Orwell, the Big Brother 1984, is just a joke for little children, because if you imagine that what your electronic eye sees, what your electronic ears hears, and even possibly what you think can be traced, or will be traced possibly, and this poses some huge problem of privacy. And just like in the present, I think that the big problem is not only or mainly some government or some bad hackers organization that steal your information, but you that voluntarily provide your authorization to every application. You know perfectly, we are very lazy, me too. We know perfectly that we give a lot of authorization of any app we like to install in our mobile phone, and they can browse our photos, browse our agenda, do whatever, possibly also sell us as a slave, or possibly not even this, but we are near. So probably we will provide some kind of authorization for free in change of the free access to some service, of course. And another question about security. I wrote an article about this, I think in 2000 or 2000, yes. We just had the Melissa, the I love you, as was called, virus that spread into 30 millions of computers in just 1-2 days. Okay. Totally, I think 200 million computers, I don't remember. But if you imagine that your nanomachine will be updated via internet, and that some hacker can enter in this updating and tell your nanomachine that for example, your coronaries are tumoral cell, you could have 20 millions or 200 millions of deaths in just a few days, just like the old plague of the 15th century. Okay, but it was lower instead. In fact, it takes some years, but here it could take days. And even more worrying, while the bacteriological war is not very used because it hits everyone, friends, foes, whatever. No, now you can have an analysis and decide to kill only, I don't know, 30 or more years old men that like Swedish cinema, for example. Or you can have a very selective approach, no, to a very selective plug. So it could be a quite worrying question in the future. Besides this, we can use artificial intelligence also to decide who is already working this way in the UK, for example. In some cases, there is a computer program that decides if you deserve some try to heal you, or you are beyond hope and we better save money and we don't try, we don't give you therapy. Okay. And with autonomous drone, we also have some weapons that is completely autonomous, and sometimes this weapon decides by itself who to kill, who's friend, who's not. Quite worrying, quite interesting. Now, normally you are not worried about machines that are stronger and faster than us. This probably because also, even before we started to use these machines centuries ago, we lived tens of thousands of years with animals in the planet that were far stronger or faster than us. But intelligence was considered the most important quality of the human being. So some people is really upset. I don't see the picture here. It's not good. But anyway, there was a picture of a Frankenstein monster. So people is afraid and think that if we manage to create some very intelligent machine, there will be some kind of punishment for defying a sort of divine order or whatever. Hubris endate, this is a quotation from Asimov that talks about Frankenstein complex, the Greek science fiction writer. And cyber could provide a solution, because there is not a friend, a man, and a foe, an enemy, the computer. We can have a gradual pacific integration. But this also leaves us with some questions. Who will enjoy this advantage? Who will pay the cost? And who will control this transformation? So all these things we have to talk about in our master. We will have, as Terry said, a very nice master. We Citel are in Naples, and we have a tight collaboration with Federico II, the University of Naples. So if you decide to do your master in Naples, we are welcome. And I think they are all wonderful cities, all wonderful places. We candidate for the better eating place for the master. But anyway, I hope to see you there. Anyway, I think if there is some question, we can also start answering some question.
Wonderful, thank you. I think you gave a very good narrative, Alessandro, from your experience back from the 70s and 80s, where people were just about as nervous, fascinated, and nervous about a lot of things about computational neuroscience. That was an emerging field. Um, Jeffrey Hinton, Jan LeCun were young men looking to do their masters and PhD. Uh, and sometimes I feel there are many people who contributed to this industry, and sometimes there've just been a handful of people who actually went and kept doing it. So yeah, and back then machines are going to take over was also a narrative. I remember there was a Times Magazine article. I obviously was way too young. I read it much later in life, in the mid 90s. It was an article from 1984 where they were talking about how machines are going to take over because the manufacturing industry in US was there was a lot of robotic solutions coming and automated sort of solutions. They were not complicated, but still they were replacing manual labor. And the industry got all, obviously media got super scared because when they spoke about robotics, then everybody was looking at experiments which Frank Rosenblatt did back in the 50s and 60s, and they were looking at those simple robotic and planning algorithms. But long story short, I still think you're right. There is on one side, perhaps we're already on that slave market with our virtual digital entities being sold. I've never come across Terry slave data to myself. I'm hoping how people are selling my identity. Maybe I'm not that useful. Maybe I'm a very useless slave in the digital market. Maybe that's why I'm not so attractive. But I can understand that many companies have used these models to actually make a lot of money. And let's not talk about who these companies are. But I mean, you could blame them, but you could also not blame them. It's, the regulatory environment allowed these companies to thrive. There was no regulator saying from the US Security Exchange or from from Europe that internet should be controlled from right from the beginning of 1995 when the first internet was coming. Everybody made it happen. When people were putting their data online, everybody made that happen. When data was created in all these anonymous data sets, which machine learning engineers could re-engineer and also find out who those people are,
Yes.
everybody made that happen. So, and even today we are making it happen. So we are saying a lot of things, we write GDPR, but eventually we are all making it happen. But nevertheless, there is one question from our colleague Monica, and perhaps I don't know what I would like to put this in front of you. And it's a very, very, very intriguing question for sure. What is your take on this, Alessandro?
Okay. And what is the question? Possibly I'm not reading all the text.
I can summarize it for you. So basically, what she's saying is there is no doubt that this digital cyborg transformation has begun, is now inevitable, or at least
Of
with the
course, I agree.
metaverse. Yeah, all those things of augmented humans, and where there is there is today there are still physical people sitting online, but there will be digital avatars walking around doing things
Yes,
for us.
of course, I consider personally it's just we have not to be so scared because starting from invention, from discovering of fire, we always had some
We've always been
people that
scared. Publishing industry back in right in the 14th century, Gutenberg press. So we understand, but the question is, let's think of at the technologies used for medical applications. For example, how can we help people? The exoskeleton kind of projects, right?
Yes,
We're making
I
people
mean,
who do not have
just
legs
from the
or have
start
other
of
disabilities.
the mankind, we have some people scared from new invention, from the progress. But anyway, the problem is not that this progress is bad. It's not bad, and anyway is inevitable, as you say, Monica. But I think that the most important thing is try to see before. Yeah, you are driving a car, the human society, you cannot have a vision of 1 meter. You have to look 100 meters or 1 mile forward to avoid obstacles. So, to what is the direction, the consequence of this social transformation, and how can we do before that happens to have this transformation with a better impact for all the society, for every people, without creating discrimination, without creating more inequality and whatever, and how to avoid some excess of control and whatever. So this is the question. It's not, no, I don't like this kind of transformation. Of course, we have to deal with transformation, but we also have to manage this transformation. In many cases, our political class is totally not prepared, not skilled. They don't know. They normally have a legal and only humanistic preparation, while we need both humanistic and scientific.
Another question from Raja, and he's asking, what can be the first real cyborg? I believe that there was this robot which is also a citizen of Saudi Arabia. I forgot her name. Uh, and which industries will it be impacted by most, if there is going to
Well,
be a real cyborg?
Well, first we already have. I think the first immediate sector is of people with some physical impairment, because this is very specialized niche sector. No, I mean people without an arm, people who are blind. This will have most likely very soon some kind of. They're already having some kind of human machine integration. But talking about, let's say, most common people, well, initially, I guess some works that are very difficult and also very dangerous. So you can imagine some kind of protection, some kind of reinforcement of your eye, in order to be able to see better, to be more shielded, etc. Then we will have a progressive integration that will be not necessarily widespread until there is some big technological breakthrough, but there will be initially specialized to some people very passionate of this, or for some specific, very specialistic work.
Wonderful. With this, I guess we come to the end of this wonderful webinar. Thank you, Alessandro, for giving your perspectives.
Thank you, Terry.
Experienced veterans like you will definitely help also the young people who are picking up and taking their master's classes. I always try to compare with all these leaders today who are Alan Turing laureates. They were all looking for today back in the 80s and 70s they were looking to do great things. Some of them have achieved wonderful things, but now I think a bit of a course correction in helping young people to achieve great things with responsibility, knowing what that digital responsibility is. Hopefully, if I'm not sure the politicians will ever learn, I think, Alessandro, that we should not rely on. I'm only hoping that subject matter experts are going to be in the right places in the European Council and all the regulatory environments, where they can not only understand and interrogate companies who do the right or the wrong, but also have and possess the digital capabilities. Who knows? Maybe these master students will someday be sitting in the European Union. In 10 years from now,
Hopefully.
maybe they will say, thank you, Alessandro, for giving me that great advice. So being hopeful and trying to do the best thing. It's a great project, people. Human centered masters is our attempt, our humble attempt, in trying to teach these young people, and at the same time learn from you as well, because teaching is about learning. Learning from you guys to help prepare you for a better future, which you will lead. I think in about a few decades we'll be dead. So from that perspective, we are hoping that we can leave the future in the safe hands of these young people, equipping them with great technology, but with great oversight and towards what the future will hold. Thank you, everybody. Alessandro, thank you very much.
Thank you very
I
much,
will
Paul.
stop the broadcast and I will wait. Please don't go away, Alessandro. We can recap this. Thanks, everybody. Take care and God bless.